Can you hear and see us, Tyler?
Yes, I can.
Great, thanks. Hi, everyone. We'll be starting in just a minute here. We're just waiting for one more member. Thank you so much. Madam Chair, it is 5:32 PM. If you're ready to call the work to NAB to order.
Yes, thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Ward 2 Neighborhood Advisory Board today on May 21st. Tyler, would you like to call the roll for us, please?
Yes, please. Chair Fuji Strickler.
Here.
Titzel. Here. Fisher. Here. Taylor. Absent at this time. Hinman. I talked to him earlier. Can you hear us, Tyler? And I'll give him a second and move on. Schomburg, absent at this time. Keats. Absent at this time. Doughty.
Here.
Keller.
Present.
Shin.
Here.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Madam Chair, you have a quorum of the Ward 2 Neighborhood Advisory Board.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tyler.
Yeah.
All right, next is public comment. Do we have anybody that'd like to give public comment before the meeting starts today?
Madam Chair, I don't have anyone who's registered to give public comment, but before we start the meeting, members of the public may hear, observe, and provide public comment virtually by registering through the following link, which can be found on reno.gov/meetings. https://LINKS/RENO/3VQ6795. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the NAB's agenda. The NAB may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you're called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you're an attendee in the Zoom meeting and you'd like to give public comment, please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window now. And while we wait for those hands, I just wanted to let ask the members to speak up during the meeting to make sure the people on Zoom and everyone can hear you. We had a couple of people at the last meeting who had some trouble hearing, so just project into the room, please. And Madam Chair, I don't see anyone who's raised their hand for opening public comment.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to move on then to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening, Tyler?
Madam Chair, there are not.
All right, would anybody like to make a motion and a second to approve this evening's agenda?
Stan Dowdy, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Member Shin can be the second.
All right, thank you so much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Tyler.
And for the record, Member Hinman is present at 5:35 PM.
All right, agenda is approved. All right, moving to the approval of the minutes from February 20th, 2024. Are there any changes to those minutes, Tyler?
There are no changes, Madam Chair, but I would ask the members who were not appointed to the NAB yet at the time of the meeting to please abstain from the vote. And I would also like to note for the record that member Donna Keats is present.
All right, thank you so much. All right, do we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from February 20th?
Member Fisher, I'll move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Miss Donna. Donna, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you,
Great.
Tyler, from February 20th. Okay, council liaison report.
Unfortunately, Vice Mayor Dewar wasn't able to be here today. She rarely misses these,
Right.
so it's very unusual, but something came up, so she won't be here. But if you've got questions for her, feel free to send them to me either to my email or say them after the meeting, and I'd be happy to forward them on.
All right, thank you so much, Tyler. Okay, staff liaison report.
Okay, great. Tyler Shaw, Community Liaison for the record, should have said that before. My only item on today's staff report is that our next Ward 2 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting is on June 18th. So mark that on your calendars, June 18th at 5:30 p.m.
Yeah, all right, thank you so much for that report. Okay, moving on, we're gonna move to business items. We're gonna be working with the City of Reno, the Language Access Plan and Community Engagement process. Sorry, I don't have my glasses. Let me start.
It's okay.
Who's with us to see this?
That's me.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Noemi Borges Martinez for the record, Community, thank you, Community Relations Manager for the City of Reno. And so I'm here to provide an update on the language access plan and also the community engagement component to it as well. And so you all have access to the presentation, so we'll go ahead and go on to the next slide. So just as a quick overview, so the City of Reno is working on a language access plan. We are about 90% done with the plan itself. This is from Assembly Bill 266 from the legislative session from last year. And so as the City of Reno, we are mandated to have a language access plan, which gives us is a really a formalized document as to what services we have at the City of Reno when it comes to language access, the needs, cost allocations, and just some data analytics when it comes to language. Part of the formalized document is an engagement component, which we'll talk a little bit about how that looks like, how constituents can really engage in the process. We're here at the NAB providing updates and other opportunities to engage in the language access plan itself. So the next slide, you'll see that it's just, the frameworks of what the language access plan will have. So as mentioned, we are doing a language needs assessment. And so what that means is we are identifying what languages are spoken here in Reno. We just finished some research. It's interesting to find that it's kind of hard to find what languages we speak. I mean, we know that English and Spanish are the top dominated languages. However, there's also more languages that are spoken here in Northern Nevada. And so we're really trying to identify those. So you'll see part of the plan will really highlight those data points. And then we're also providing an opportunity for constituents to give us some feedback on the survey, which I'll touch on. The plan will also include an existing language services, what we already have. So the city has been investing in language services when it comes to translation, interpretation. We recently purchased with ARPA funds what we call the Ubi Duo. It's a Ubi Duo 3 device. And for those of you that do not know what that is, it's a device that's wireless, doesn't require any internet, but those with the hearing impairment or that may be deaf can communicate with staff through a device, and they're really well known. And so we purchased 3 of them. And so that's another way of providing inclusivity when it comes to language and also being able to access our services. So we will have a pretty extensive list of services that we have at the city. And then just language access procedures when it comes to anyone that comes in that speaks different languages. So for example, if someone was here today wanting to provide public comment on a different language, what are the procedures when it comes to being able to get that communicated over and also giving the tools to you all to be able to have accessibility for our constituents. With that, it's a lot of employee training, which is going to take time. Part of the plan comes with a timeline that's highlighted in the next from now to 2026 and beyond. But there is training components that comes with that. We want to make sure everyone's equipped and really understands what these processes look like. There's an allocation of funding, and so we're also highlighting, which will also take us some time to see what it costs. This mandate does not come with funding, and so that's something that we also need to keep in mind. And so to be able to implement this plan, it does require funding, and so we're also highlighting those into our plan as well. And then final recommendations, as we really progress and we kind of see the needs in our community, but it's also important for us to hear. And so in the back, and I can pass this along, we have a dedicated webpage when it comes to language access and also a survey that's accessible in 4 languages currently right now, which I'll kind of touch on the next slide as well. And then just as a note, this plan will be submitted to the governor's office of New Americans every 2 years on an even year. So this year, we will need to submit by August 1st, and then every 2 years. So it's a living document that we're going to be updating regularly. So this is a survey that we currently have now. It's a language access survey. It can be accessed through this QR code, which I'll leave here, and then it's also available online. It's in English, Spanish, the Filipino language, and in Mandarin. Of course, many different languages are spoken here. These are some of the top languages that are spoken in the area, and so it's available. It doesn't take very long, so we're out here looking for feedback, kind of letting us know when it comes to language access services. And we're finding really interesting information. I can tell you currently, based on some of the information that we're receiving, we have close to almost 80% of people that have filled it out don't know of the services that we already have at the city. And so we're really finding some good information that will be added to the plan. And then the next slide we have, so tomorrow we're having a joint listening session with the county. So the county, the city of Sparks, city of Reno, we're mandated to have a language access plan. But we are working together to ensure that our plans really align with one another. Of course, they're going to look a little bit different, but we want to make sure that we have that. They're really in alignment. I think oftentimes we can be in different areas. We don't know if we're in Washoe and Reno. So we are working together. So if you want to come and see the draft plan, then we are going to be at the Sierra View Library at Reno Town Hall from 5:30 to 7. And so we'll have an actual draft document which you can come see, provide any feedback, recommendations. For City of Reno, we will also provide it online, so you can access it online and provide us feedback through a survey form. And so once it gets finalized, we are going to take this feedback, draft it and put it into the plan, and then I will be giving it to the council in June for adoption. And so here is also the image of the dedicated page that we have to language access. Once the plan gets adopted, that plan will be added to this page, as well as all of our services that we do have. But this is just across the city. Community court has their services and translation services, police, fire. And so it's quite extensive, but it's going to be nice to see it all live in one place. And I believe that is all I have.
Ooh.
But I'm open to any questions that you all may have. Otherwise, I do invite you to check us out tomorrow, look at the plan, and also participate on taking the survey.
Audrey Keller. My question is, very nice presentation. Can you share with us the percentages of English, Spanish, Tagalog, and Mandarin basically roughly in the city? Do you know?
I don't have them here with me. They're on the plan itself. So I can send that. I can send the draft plan over to Tyler so you can see it, but it's all based on census data. Really to different. I don't have it top of my head, but
So 2020 census data?
yes.
And I just fall onto that. Are you physically doing any outreach into the Filipino community or Mandarin communities? Physically going and doing any cross-checking?
Yeah, so what we've done is we've partnered with some of our community partners where we have shared these surveys. I think for us, when it comes to community relations, it's important that we have our partnerships because they're really close to their community. And so they're able to distribute the information, even when we're going out, like just this past Sunday, we had our Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Celebration at the city, and we had good amount of people that attended. We were out there tabling and reaching out to members of the community to take our surveys. So we're doing outreach specifically with our partners.
Thank you. Very much.
You talked about part of the plan is identifying funding. Where did you identify the funding, and do you guys have enough funding? Because it didn't surprise me that 80% of the people don't know about that this exists. This is the first I'm hearing about it. And do you think is it lack of funding that the word hasn't got out that these services are available?
So we are working with an array of departments to identify what are the needs. It's going to take us some time. So when you look at the plan, we have just estimates, but it's an ongoing project. So we need to really go in and talk to departments, like what is it going to cost? How much is it already costing you per departments? Like, for example, we have staff at the city of Reno that's bilingual, and they're able to communicate with, with people in the community. However, when you're translating documents, it costs money. Even when like the surveys here, the like Mandarin, they charge per word. And so as we're submitting these documents and we're submitting a vital documents, it comes with a cost. So we are right now looking into it. It takes time. And so we don't have funding, like a bucket of money that goes specifically to language access. It's all by departments. And so we're kind of in the process for that. And you had a second question. What was your
Well, I guess my question in general is, do you guys have enough funding, or is this plan just aspirational and you're looking for funding to bring it to fruition? Is that the stage that we're in here?
At this point in time, because we don't have funding that was allocated to the assembly bill, it is like a combination of everything that we do have and what has already been invested. Typically, a lot of the departments provide their own funding. And so that's what we're looking at. And so at the end of this, we'll be able to say, this is how much it's going to cost across citywide and how much we need, but we don't have that at the moment. That's hopefully down the line, we can say we want, for example, we're getting integrated technology in our city chambers or council chambers. So those that are hard of hearing can access through an app. And so they're able to communicate and be able to hear better just with technology, but that costs money. And so, but it's being already implemented. So we got to take that into account. Our Ubi Duo 3 devices, each device was a little bit over $2,000. And so we were able to use that through ARPA funding. And so also when we do translation services, we take that out of our general funds that we have per department. So it's a lot, and I think that's why we're on the first phase currently. But that's a great question.
Anybody else?
It looked like, Tyler, did you have your hand up?
I did, but it was mostly just answered there. I was also going to say that this was the first time that I had heard anything about this. I just wanted to ask a little bit more about funding, but that was answered. Thank you.
One of the big components that we're finding is also education. So now if you go to our city clerk's office or business licensing, or if you go into City Hall on the first floor, you'll see signs that say Ubi Duo 3. So people in that community that know these devices can ask and will feel comfortable that they're there. And then when we go out into our communities, it's going to be a huge component. It's educating on the services that we do offer inside.
Membership, so you all know, I work at the legislature, so was, adjacent to all of this. I help with language access legislation. And so, yeah, the first, those of you that are just hearing about it, it's because it was from last session, and she said that and the mandate, it's an unfunded mandate, and really to make municipalities and counties look at how they're servicing communities based on language needs. And some municipalities and counties are better than others, obviously, and so this is more of an awareness right now. I think the goal would be to bring and be able to provide more money, from the top down for language access, but at this moment, unfortunately, it is an unfunded mandate, but as you see, like, it is bringing about a discussion. I think that was the intent of the legislators that passed the bill, so I'm excited and I'm glad you're all doing that, so thank you.
Well, and do I have to, am I supposed to say my name first or?
Yes.
Okay, Member Titzel. So I would think the long-term goal is to say, this is what needs to be, like, it should be aspirational and say, this should be funded. And, and if you got the word out that this is something that exists and it has a need, then I think it should be advertised and then also argued for funding for it. So you don't have to go scrape and, get funds together, willy-nilly from wherever you can, or being unfunded and taking from the core mission of whatever these entities are supposed to do. It should all be consolidated. It would be much more efficient if there was, one agency called this, that was in charge of doing this,
Thank you for that. And yeah, it's been, I've learned a lot throughout the process and as we're learning, and one of the huge components when it comes to community relations is that people are able to trust government, which means you meet them where they are. They're able to interact with government in their language. It creates a different dynamic, and I think it also creates more civic engagement.
Yeah, for sure. And then the people know what the government is doing and it's doing good.
So we have, the plan will definitely highlight that. You'll get a chance to see that and provide some feedback before it goes to adoption, but it's an ongoing document and it's going to change. So these surveys they don't have an expiration date, because after it gets adopted, things happen. And I think people should have the opportunity to go in there and provide feedback. So we're going to consistently be looking and updating as we go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate that. Oh,
Donna Keats. I was wondering, what department is handling this right now?
Yeah, so the city council made the decision for the equity and community relations team within the city manager's office to take the lead.
thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to business item B2. It's a Huff Acres sewer lift replacement project. And with us today is Eric Miller from the city of Reno. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Eric Miller, an associate civil engineer with the Utility Services Department. I might have Roy Flores here, he's a senior civil engineer above me, here to support if any higher up questions get asked, you can be there for it. So here to talk to you about the Huff Acres sewer lift station project that we're going to be putting out to bid here soon. As an overview, a sewer lift station is needed when the sewer becomes too deep to maintain, or we kind of hit a natural low spot. And then a sewer lift station kind of pumps up using pumps and a pressurized pipe, pushes the sewer to a higher location for then it to go gravity again, eventually hitting the treatment. So the city currently has 29 sewer lift stations that we own and maintain, and this is on our list of ones that we need to replace this. So a kind of a overview map of where the lift station is located. It's located off of Brunson Drive and Autumn Hills Boulevard. I will be kind of going over the need for the project, kind of timeline of it, and what we'll be doing during construction and access in the area for the residents. Slide. So here's a photo of actual street view of the lift station. I like that most people, when they see it, they don't know what it is. It means you're doing a good job. You just aren't knowing that it's sewer there or anything, you can't smell it. But this lift station was originally built in 1977. It is an older designed lift station where it's a dry pit, wet pit configuration. What that means is You've got one deep manhole that is, these are 17 feet deep from this lift station. That is, has all of your sewage going into it. And then the dry pit is where the pumps are stored, your valving are stored, and those are all stored at 17 feet deep. It sucks the sewer out from the wet pit area and then pushes it up to the gravity area. So this is a lot older design. We're going away from this because it's really unsafe for maintenance. Maintenance, anytime they have to service a pump or do any kind of thing on it, they actually have to climb down 17 feet with the tripod hooked up to their back and go and do all the work down 17 feet deep. So we're trying to really get a lot safer for our maintenance folks that have to work on all 29 of these stations. And improve, just bring it up to the current industry standards. So it's, like I said, 1977, aging infrastructure. That current wet pit is, and dry pit is a steel can, so it's starting to corrode a little bit. And yeah, just they've hit their useful life. So, like I said. So today we have the lift station designed. We're ready to go out to bid. So the current plan is next week, as long as the budget gets approved, we'll be going out to bid on this project. The end of June, we will be opening bids and then determining which is the lowest responsible contractor. The plan right now is to take it and award this project at the July 24th council meeting. It's the very first one of the fiscal year. But summer of 2025 is when construction is going to start. And seems a long time, or about a whole entire year. And that's because in our industry, what we're seeing right now is we're seeing about 40 to 50 weeks of lead time on some of these major items. Generators we're seeing take about 40 weeks from the time we order them for them to show up. We've got other electrical products that are taking that amount of time. So I have other projects that I awarded last summer. We're just now getting started because when the products start and we can't have them started and then just sit there, it'd be a lot worse of failure. So yeah, we'll be here now and then we'll wait, be silent, and we'll kick off construction and get it done in a couple months. Next slide. So for the final design, both the lift station, which is kind of up in right there where Tyler's pointing, that's for location, and then the black line with the red dots moving forward, that's going to be the force main that we were going to be replacing. The current force main was also built in 1977. It's asbestos cement pipe. So we're going to be getting it out of the ground and we're going to be replacing the force main with an HDPE pipe. And that's now the industry standard. That's what they use in the mines. They hook them up to the excavators, whip them all around. They're very sturdy, thick. People can hit them and there's no problem. So, so during construction, obviously we're going to be on Autumn Hill Drive. We are going to be, there's 1, 2, 3, there's about 5 homes on the north that will be affected, and some homes on the south down there. There will be some construction access during it. We do require the contractor to give all of these homeowners many days in advance of saying, hey, we're going to be in front of your property. We need the day in order to do the work. And by the time when we leave during that day, you'll get access back in. So we'll tell them like, hey, if you need to go somewhere, move your car to access it later, probably about 8 a.m. and then you can get back with your car at like 5 p.m. So normal business day, but they'll still have access. We'll still provide access to their house, but they driving their car in and out will be the one concern during this time. That work, anticipate maybe a max of a week that they would have to be moving back and forth the timeline. So, excited. Kind of getting into the depths of a lift station. That current lift station, the red line that I have right there, that's where the current fence is, and we're maintaining that complex. There's a tree back there and our property kind of abuts right up to that tree. And in order to save that tree and maintain the tree, we're actually going to keep the same fence line, but it is requiring us to push out into the street a little bit more. The current road on Brunson Drive right there, which is just a dead end road up against the, there's a storage unit there, is currently 38 feet wide. It's a pretty wide road for a dead end road. With our moving out and relocating the sidewalk some, we're still gonna be maintaining 32 feet wide. So we're not taking too much away. We've taken into account how there's the property owner moving his RV back and forth. We don't feel like there'll be any kind of interruption to those property people for the life of this lift station. So like I mentioned before, the pumps and everything's going to be installed to make easier access. The pumps will actually sit inside of the wet environment now, right where the sewage is, but they'll be hooked up to a chain, allowing them to just pull them up to the surface, do the maintenance work on them at the surface of the lift station, and then be able to drop them back down. Really eliminating that confined space component to what is current. Slide. And this is the lift station we actually completed last year. And it's off of Edison Drive, but I took this picture because it kind of gives a bit of an example of when you look down Brunson Drive, what the lift station will look at with the sidewalk kind of abutting out, and then we'll have the lift station sitting there. And so I wanted to include that picture just so you'll get a good idea of what the finished product will look like. You guys have a lot more trees back there, so Edison does quite have some trees. And then, yeah, next slide. So my contact information, Laura's contact information, if you guys do have any questions. Yeah, any questions now or?
I've been on the job for a while, and some of us, Patrick, and also a few of us, and I live fairly close. I live actually across Virginia Street, but we know that Autumn Hills is notorious for the floods.
Yep.
So in some of those floods that we've had previously, I had heard that the lift station experienced flooding as well. I mean, so is this going to help eliminate any flooding for the lift station in the future for that with changing up the design?
So the lift station is built at a natural low spot.
Right.
So if there are floods, it's probably where the water is going to hit first. We are, with this project, replacing the outdated infrastructure. We are making it where the lift station can still operate during a flooding condition. And the pumps, they're a little oversized for what's there, so this won't, yeah, it's the lift station projects to replace the outdated infrastructure and just improve the safety of the lift station operators.
So so any future flooding then wouldn't compromise the lift station then's functionality. It would still.
It should still be able to,
function.
yep.
You want to mention how the electrical components raised above?
Yeah, so because we've seen where that flood line is out there, the electrical and the generator will still be raised above that flood line. Allowing, even if there's a power outage in the area while there's flooding, we would still be able to operate with the generator and the electrical all above the flood line.
Right now, is that electrical sitting below like the?
So, yeah, so our maintenance staff, so Roy Flores, senior civil engineer, it's currently raised above the flood line. And so we're just, with the new components we're putting in, we're just making sure that we continue to have it above the flood line. I believe I wasn't here when that happened. I think it's 2017. I think stuff was below. And then after that event, they raised everything above.
Yeah, I think we had one after.
Yeah, so they have, and they have it, they have marks on the fence, like spray painted marks of where the line was, and they have since raised the existing equipment.
Ah.
But, it's still older equipment, the generator's old, so we're gonna be replacing with newer stuff, and it's still gonna stay above the floor.
And generators are one of our requirements for our lift stations, right? So should you run out of power, turn off, the generator would come on and continue to operate. This is one of it's one of our smaller lift stations, mostly residential flows. It's not one of our bigger ones that handles a lot in the city of Reno. So in the event of there's a power outage, the generator would turn on, and as Eric mentioned, everything's above ground and will continue to operate.
I have a question,
David.
for Tinsel. So, this flood line, is that looking back or is that taking climate change into account? For where this, I mean, we're gonna have bigger storms going forward than we've had in the past.
So, yeah, the flooding is a separate kind of issue that,
I'm just asking, did the design take that into account?
for.
Of where you're putting this, it sounds like it's important to have the electrical above some flooding level.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just saying, did it take into account?
So we have the level of where we've seen from the major storms. Or
So what was
the major
backwards
flooding,
looking?
and then we didn't put it right at that elevation, we still have a buffer above that too. So we are accounting for a little bit of safety factor there too.
Yeah, I mean, if there, I'm not sure, I'm just trying to think if there's an actual, I don't think that there's an actual FEMA flood zone that runs through there. It's just kind of an unusual area that is a low spot where the water runoff seems to flood that Autumn Hills area, so. But the fact that you took into account that you guys gave a little bit of freeboard and then raised it above from those previous flood levels, so they're adding more additional protection with that equipment than above those previous flood levels. Even though it's not like a mandated floodplain from FEMA, but they took into precaution and raised it up, because that's just a really weird low spot out there.
And partly too, I wanna make sure that stuff is, I mentioned why we aren't doing it till the summer of 2025. Those are the components that if we didn't raise them up and a flood came through, then we could be waiting a year for those components to come back to us of new. And so I know the generators are 40 weeks out right now, and a lot other electrical equipment that is coming in is 40 to 50 weeks. So if we take our abundance of caution to make sure that we're not gonna lose that function. Those are the things that control a whole entire lift station.
So how high off the ground is it? You know, from how high in the air is it?
Off the top of my head, I don't have an answer on that. So I'd have to get back to you on exactly what that number is.
Are you the engineer?
We hired a consultant to do the engineering, and I've looked at the plans recently, but part of the project, we're doing 2 lift stations in one, and so I don't have that off the top of my head of exactly how high. It's 3-4 feet, I want to guesstimate, off of the ground that we're having the pump.
Okay, thank you.
Patrick?
Member Fisher, for the record, we, in the prior meeting with the residents who came here to complain about flooding and the lack of control over the flows. There was a lot of blame placed on the development that's directly to the north. The storage facility, that type of thing. With your expertise, was the low spot, was it the ponding area created by development? It wasn't always like this. It didn't always need a lift station in this area.
This lift station's been there since 1977.
1977.
Yeah, so
So when the neighborhood was built,
when that neighborhood was built, the lift station was
built on a low,
needed, and that's where the natural flow of the development went to, and they couldn't gravity it to. They couldn't gravity the whole entire subdivision
Right.
out to probably.
and that was long before the storage facility was permitted and and built and that type of thing. So there was an existing problem before the development came in and raised up.
The sewer lift station,
So if you don't mind, the sewer lift station is just handling sanitary sewer, so this isn't mixed with storm. So City of Reno has a separated system. If you go back east, they have combined systems, which would be sewer and storm.
Yeah.
So sewer is it's just sewer, so people residential flows. And as Eric was mentioning that usually lift stations are in a low spot within a development, whether it's residential, commercial, and that's where all the flows will go to, a low point, and then you'll pump it uphill, and then you'll continue with gravity flow.
Got it.
In a perfect world, we would just have it all gravity, and then we wouldn't have these mechanical components. These lift stations are pretty expensive. I think these last ones we did, they're between $2 and $3 million. And so you can imagine every 20 to 30 years you're replacing these. And so, sometimes depending on many years ago, someone made a decision to have this lift station and, in order for people to continue to live in the community, the lift station continues to operate. And so we're basically here today just to, let you know that we're replacing the lift station and the project's going to be up to bid pretty soon. And as Eric mentioned, we'll go to construction in a year due to waiting for components to come in. So we're really not involved in the stormwater.
Yeah,
We're kind of separate. So there's a whole kind of another team that does that.
that's good.
And we're just, like I said, we're just focusing on sewer in this area.
Thank you.
And we're really excited too. This is a Hub Acre lift station in Lake Ridge. We're actually combining 2 other lift stations. We have another lift station in the Lake Ridge community as well. And so there's some cost savings by combining these projects together. And these will actually be the last 2 lift stations of the 29 in the City of Reno that have been fully replaced. So someone, maybe our kids in 20, 30 years will be here. Then now we're talking about replacing the Hub Acre lift station, the other one. So
hope it lasts long.
yeah.
Audrey?
Audrey Keller. So this lift station, does it serve Ward 2? I just don't know.
Yep, it serves, kind of the,
Geographically. And is that why you're here? Because we're Ward 2?
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted
so in this
to.
map, in like this small corner down there, you can see the red is Ward 2, and then the project location's like down the very low portion of Ward 2. And like Roy said, this is one of our smaller lift stations. It probably serves 20, 30 homes, maybe a little bit more than that. And they're all Ward 2 residents within this development off of like Autumn Hills Drive. There's a whole entire set development there. They're all Ward 2 members.
And I have a separate question on slide number 5. And this is I don't know if this is a process question, it's still a city kind of questions. I see it has family names on all these residences.
Yep.
Is that necessary to make that public in this kind of a presentation? I mean, it seems like it sort of crosses a little privacy issue.
So these are all
It's all available.
documents off of the Washoe County Register.
I understand that, but you're coming to us as individuals. Do you need to publish their names? I'm just wondering.
They're public documents.
That's the best way to get the idea of,
And these are on I took these images off of our plans because when we are going out or if the contractor needs to be out there talking to them, they have at least a general idea of who they're gonna be meeting with or talking to.
And this is kind of, kind of standard practice. So I think RTCs are going to be presented a little bit. And so when they have their road projects, they actually have the parcel numbers, which you see right there, and the property owner. We happen to be in a residential neighborhood because this is a residential lift station. If we were on like a arterial road like Moana, you would see whoever owns Moana here, and it could be businesses, but this is all public information.
So it's a SOP, standard operating procedure. Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions? Anybody up there?
I have a quick one, sorry.
So like Donna?
Is your ward boundaries here, are these the new ones coming up or the existing?
No, there exists.
Anybody in Zoom have any questions?
Is there anyone in the room who'd like to give public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there anyone
I guess I would like to make public comment on this item.
Since you're a board member, David, you can just give normal comment.
Okay, I guess I would request in general, when you guys do designs, redesigns of critical infrastructure, that you take climate change into account and don't look backwards with your historical data and add a bit, I mean, use the most accurate science there is and design it for the upcoming storms that we're gonna have. Because it is gonna be a problem. And if your storm is bigger than what you've done, now this lift station is gonna be out for a year, you said. So I guess that would be.
Yeah, we can definitely take that into consideration.
Is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to give public comment on this item? If you'd like to give public comment by Zoom, please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window.
And just to add really quick, there are other, should there be a power failure at lift stations, just in general, I mean, we bring out pumps and there's ways to, we're setting it up so that you can do bypass pumping. I mean, sometimes, if we need to work on a wet well of some kind, we'll actually bring out like diesel pumps and then kind of have a setup to where you have to bypass the lift station. So there's things we can work with, but this is a relatively small site.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate that. Okay, moving on to the third business item, B3. It's Regional Transportation Commission's Ward 2 General Project Updates. And we've got Paul from RTC joining us today to give us a presentation. Welcome, Paul. Thank you.
Just a note for the members, there was a change in the presentation, so you've got a separate packet with the presentation. If you use that one, that's the most up-to-date version instead of the one in the big packet.
Okay.
Take anything. All right, my name is Paul Nelson. I'm the Government Affairs Officer at RTC. Good to see you. Good to see you. And I'm going to talk about some of the good projects that we've got going on over here in Ward 2. I also live in Ward 2, so I get to see some of the construction firsthand and some of the progress we're making every time I go to work. So, the next slide. So our Board of Commissioners is made up of 5 electeds throughout the region. So we've got Mayor Lawson of Sparks, he's our chair. And then we've got 2 Washoe County Commissioners, Alexis Hill and Maria Luz Garcia. And then 2 Reno City Councilmen, Mayor Chi and Devin Reeves. And we also have Tracy Larkin Thomason as the next officio. She's the director of NDOT. She sits on the board. And then our executive director is Bill Thomas. So our mission is building a better community through quality transportation, and we do that in 3 different ways. We're kind of a 3-legged stool, and the first prong of that stool is the metropolitan transportation planning. So what we do is we look at all of the short-term and the long-term planning in the region, and that really helps us better equip ourselves moving forward on our projects and transit and things like that. Engineering and construction is the second one, and so we build all the regional roads. And we don't own roads, we build them, and then we hand them back to the jurisdictions that manage them. And then public transportation is our last one. So we'll do that real quick. So our fixed route transit is known as RTC Ride. It's the backbone of our system. In the last 12 months, we've had almost 5.3 million rides, and 60% of those are work-related trips. So we know how important this service is for the community, especially when it comes to people getting to and from work. And for our local economy. We've also had 21 straight months of growth in our ridership, so we're pretty happy with that. So our alternative fuels program is something we're really excited about too. We originally planned on having an all alternative fuel fleet by 2035, and we accomplished that in 2022. So 13 years ahead of schedule. Part of that fleet, about 1/3 of it, is our electric buses. That's 23 of them. The rest of them are hybrids. They're diesel electric, and we just got our first 2 hydrogen fuel cell buses in December. They're going to be put into commission in about 2 or 3 months, hopefully. We have 6 more of those on order, and we have a permanent hydrogen fueling facility that's set to come online later this year too. So when you look at the reason we went to hydrogen fuel cell buses is more flexibility. So our electric buses only have a range of about 100 miles, then they have to go and charge them up overnight. With the hydrogen fuel cells, the hydrogen charges the batteries as they drive. So we get a range of more like 300 every time you fuel up. And it takes about 10 minutes to fuel up the hydrogen buses. So it gives us a lot more flexibility. We can put them on more routes than we can with our electric buses. So during the pandemic, we ended up losing some ridership, and then we had a couple of bus strikes, and that didn't help either. So we've been doing things to try to get that ridership back up. One of our big successes is our bus rapid transit. And you can see just the numbers right there, the Virginia line and the Lincoln line. The Virginia line goes from Meadowwood Mall up to Lawler Event Center. The Lincoln line goes from 4th Street Station over to Centennial Plaza by the Nugget. And just from those two routes, that's 1.4 million rides that we provide every year. That's 27% of our total ridership, and that's just two routes out of 20. So you can see how important these two routes are. Really what makes these two routes special is the frequency. We operate kind of like a poor man's light rail system. So we have a bus that'll arrive at one of these BRT stations every 10 minutes. So if you miss the bus, you got another one right behind it. So some creative ways that we've been really trying to help build that ridership are the Flex Ride is one example of that. We put these Flex Rides, these little cutaway buses, we put these in zones. We've got 4 of them throughout the region. We put them in areas where there's just not enough demand to have a fixed route bus system. So it's basically like an Uber or a Lyft. It's our version of it. So you can either call customer service or you can go on the app. You can order a Flex Ride. It'll come to your house, pick you up, and it'll take you for a ride anywhere within that zone. And you can see the 4 different areas there, and we'll get into that on the next slide. So the first 2 routes are zones, I should say. We've got Spanish Springs and North Valleys. And like I said, you can go anywhere within those zones on the Flex Ride, and it can also connect you to a fixed route if you need to get access to the rest of the cities. Next one. Somerset Bird Eye, that's another one. That's a big one because it stretches from Sierra Street all the way over to the state line. Serves the whole northwest part of town basically, and then South Meadows. We're really excited because we just launched this one May 4th. And we heard from a lot of people in South Reno that they need transit, but we only have one bus line that goes down there. We got Route 56 that goes down Double R Boulevard and then circles around back up Virginia Street. We also have the regional connector that goes from Meadowwood Mall down to Carson City. But you can see that zone is quite a ways away from those bus stops. So we're hoping that this zone will really help with that. You can see a couple of spots outside of the zones. You got like the DMV, you've got Walmart, the Summit Mall, you've got points of interest where it'll take you to outside of that zone. A couple of other really good programs we have in place are the Senior Ride Taxi Bucks program and the Van Pool program. And the way the Senior Ride Taxi Bucks works is you get a card. It's for people 60 and older, veterans, or people with disabilities. You have a card that auto loads $60 every month. And you can use that for as many taxi rides or Uber and Lyft rides as you can until it runs out. It won't roll over to the next month, but when the next month starts, you'll get another $60 on it. So the Van Pool program is something that we're really impressed with in our region. It's a carpooling program for people that work together that might live in the same area. So it can be 5 people to 15 people, and it can be a small van like this, or it can be a large van that can transport a lot of people. And we've got 340 vans just in our area. And that's the 6th largest in the country. And we're not a real big city. So the reason we think that is because we've got so many areas quite a ways out, Susanville, TRI, Lake Tahoe, Carson City. People are commuting quite a ways. So this has been a very successful program for us. Just in the last, just in 2023, it took 20 million miles of miles traveled off of our roads. So that's less congestion, less air pollution. So planning. Right now, we're working on a regional transportation plan update. This one's for 2050. So what the RTP is it's our long range plan. We're talking 20 plus years out. We're even farther than that because we're looking 25 years out. We update it every 4 years. And the last time we did this was spring of 21. So the next time we'll have this completed is spring of 25. It takes quite a while to take care of this. And one of the things we really want to do is we want to get the community's input on this. We want to capture the community's vision. That way we can take that vision and implement different projects and programs to really achieve that vision. And we can implement these, and so can other member entities, Reno Sparks, Washoe County, and NDOT. Our planning department also does a lot of different studies and plans. So the active transportation plan is what we call walk and roll trucking meadows, and it's a component of the RTP. And it really looks at our bicycle and pedestrian network. It starts at the neighborhood level. And so we can see really where we can make these improvements and then kind of connect those networks. It's for people of all ages. It looks at the sidewalks, it looks at the bicycle facilities like bike lanes, multi-use paths, race cycle tracks, things like that. And then we analyze the existing data like the transit, equity, safety, the bicycle level of stress. So how do people feel when they're riding their bikes on our city streets? And then also the pedestrian experience. The South Virginia Transit-Oriented Development Study is one that we're getting close to the finish line with. And this one goes from right around Meadowood Mall down to Summit Mall. And it looks at all of the developable land between there. And what we're looking at is how can we develop it in a way that will make it better for building walkable and bikeable communities. And if there's enough density there and enough businesses there, is it possible that we could extend that bus rapid transit from the Meadowood Mall down to the Summit Mall? So we're waiting for the results on that and we'll see what we can do. But if you think about like the red development over where the old Park Lane was and the future Damani, downtown Damani, you know, kind of neighborhoods like that you can build that you can park your car and walk across the neighborhood and feel comfortable. We're also in the middle of a freight plan, and you can look at that map right there, and the dark red lines, you can see that's where the highest percentage of our freight is. And we're seeing an increase in truck traffic because we've got more warehousing, we've got distribution centers, manufacturing, fulfillment centers. So we're seeing a lot more trucking going from, say, TRI, you know, going across the state line, coming from the Bay Area, things like that. So what this study aims to do is facilitate safe and efficient freight and goods movement. And it really looks at the economy and how we can really foster a thriving and diverse economy. And then we identify and support some of the infrastructure improvements that we can do for trucks. So engineering, this is a big one. You guys always see construction this time of the year, and it seems to be never ending, but when it is done, it's a good product. And we've got a lot of good projects that are happening in Ward 2. Last year, we invested more than $87 million in those construction projects, and that resulted in more than 2,600 jobs. So some of the big projects that we've got going on right now, we just broke ground on the Steamboat Parkway Improvements Project earlier this month. And I think it was a little bit late, just a few weeks ago. It was late April. So what this project does is if you look at that Damani Ranch Parkway intersection right there, they're going to restrike that so that there'll be 3 left-hand turns to get onto Steamboat Parkway. And then they're going to widen that roadway from Marketplace Drive to Veterans Parkway. So when you look over here, it'll be 3 lanes of this road. When you look at the intersection at Veterans, there's going to be more capacity there too. We're adding another left-hand turn lane on the north and southbound side of Veterans Parkway. There's going to be an additional lane that goes straight across Veterans from Steamboat. So it's going to really improve the congestion that we see in that area right now. And this is really one of the main corridors in the Damani Ranch area. If you live in Damani Ranch, you probably drive on this section. So we're expecting this project to be done by the fall, and I think everyone will be pretty happy when it's done. So another one we've got coming up, June 10th is when we plan on breaking ground on this one. It's the South Virginia Street I-580 exit 29 capacity and safety project. I think it's the longest title we've got for one of our projects. So I like to call it the In-N-Out Burger project. What we're gonna do is on Virginia Street, we're gonna be adding another northbound travel lane from just south of where that picture is from the, I guess would be the southbound exit all the way up to Long Lane. So that'll reduce some of the congestion on that road. We're also gonna be making some capacity improvements to the off-ramp right here. If you guys have been there during rush hour, you probably see the traffic back up and it's a stop sign. A lot of traffic on Virginia Street, so it's really hard to get out onto Virginia Street. So we're gonna add another turning lane there, so there'll be 2 right-hand turn lanes. We're gonna put a traffic signal there to make it a lot safer for people. It's also gonna include, you can see the center median there. We're gonna still have the center median, we're gonna have access, left-hand turns to get into the businesses there. There's gonna be improvements for sidewalks, bike facilities, and ADA improvements as well. So, and also with the intersections of Longer Lane and Patriot, we're gonna be making some improvements at those intersections as well. The South Meadows traffic enhancement. So this is kind of a series of projects. There's, if you look at that top left picture, that is going westbound on the Monty Ranch Parkway where you turn to go on to Double R. We're adding another right-hand turn lane to get onto that one. And there's gonna be some new striping as you get to the on-ramps at I-580 as well. Down below, that picture is over there on South Meadows Parkway. We're making that turn lane longer to get onto Gateway. So that'll be, that'll also reduce congestion. And then that top right picture right there, we built a sidewalk. I don't think there was a sidewalk there, right? We were filling in the gap where there wasn't a sidewalk. That's closer to the intersection right there, I think it's Double Diamond. So we're also putting in some fiber optics to improve traffic signals. And really overall, they're smaller projects, but it's gonna be a big improvement for that area. So the Veterans Roundabout modifications, when we built this roundabout, there wasn't nearly as much traffic. So we're gonna be making some upgrades to this. I think it'll be adding capacity, right? Adding capacity at this roundabout and really improve the operation so that people can get into the roundabout and get out. And they don't have to worry about, traffic backing up as they're doing it. One thing about roundabouts, a lot of people wonder why roundabouts keep going in. They do reduce crashes by about 30%. And when they do happen, they're a lot less severe because you don't have the head-on collisions, you don't have the T-bone collisions, and cars are going slower.
Okay.
Another one we have starting up this year is the traffic signal installation. So this one right over here is just down the street on Baker Lane and Moana. So one of the reasons that we're putting a traffic signal on this location is because we've got the aquatic center that's going in. That's going to be opening up this summer. There's going to be more traffic, more pedestrians. So we figured that this would be a good reason to put a traffic signal on. We also have another series of other traffic signals that we'll be replacing or are there replacements or?
There's that project, there's a couple new signals, one in Sparks, and then lots of like spot improvements with battery backup systems and other minor improvements that it's not a whole brand new signal system, just improvements to systems.
By the way, this is Jeff Wilbrecht. He's our engineering manager. So he's going to be answering some questions that I might not know, some of the more technical ones. Next. Another one we've got is the Veterans Parkway ITS, and this is going to go from Steamboat Parkway up to Long Meadow. So right there where I was talking about the Steamboat project, from there up to Long Meadow. And what this will do is really make our traffic signal smarter. So think of a crash happens or there's congestion. What it would do is make it so that the congestion would be alleviated. So in real time, these traffic signals could adjust to what the traffic is. And it could be the traffic signals, it could be cameras, and it can be flashing beacons for pedestrians, things like that. So this will improve safety and the flow of traffic along Veterans Parkway. Some upcoming street and highway projects. Next year, we've got the Arrow Creek Parkway Wedge Rehabilitation Project. So on the left, you see Arrow Creek Parkway. Both of these roads, they're pretty beat up. So with rehabilitation, what we do is we take the surface off and we get the base, recycle that, lay a new base down, and then put a new surface on. So this is part of our pavement preservation program. And what it does is it makes our good roads stay good. So this is less expensive to keep our roads lasting longer. We get more bang for our buck, and it really extends the life of the road. On that map right there, you can see the two stretches where the projects will be happening. So also next year, we're going to start the Meadowood Mall Circle rehabilitation. So there's 3 small roads that you enter Meadowood Mall Circle from. So Meadowood Mall Way right there, you can see it's pretty beat up there too. This is another rehabilitation project. Meadowood Mall Circle and Neil Way. So that'll get started next year. This is something, you know, that's come from the BRT line. When we first built these, the BRT, we put in what we call these mini BRT stations. So that top left picture right there is just a real small bus stop. So what we're gonna do is replace those with full-size BRT stations like you see in the other two pictures. The picture down below, when we built that one, some of these original larger stations, the platform was built to be right at the same level where you enter the bus, but we were using larger buses back then. So for ADA compliance, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that platform down so that it'll be right there at the level of the bus entrance there. So it's better for people with wheelchairs and we can just step right on, don't have to be a passenger or anything like that. The other thing we're gonna be doing is on this top right picture, we're gonna be extending a bus only lane between Peckham Lane and Plum Lane. So that'll be even more efficiency for our bus line. So in 2027, tentatively, we have the Geiger Grade Road realignment. And this is it kind of goes along with that roundabout. A lot more traffic in that area. So the plan is to realign Geiger Grade at Toll Road, and it would cut across over to US 395 instead of having to go all the way up to where the Summit Mall intersection is. So we think that that will alleviate some of the traffic problems that we've got down in the south end of town. And then finally, we have the Mount Rose improvements, and this is an NDOT project, but we partner with NDOT on a lot of these things. They did a study of the whole corridor, and there's different areas that they look at, because you've got right there from the roundabout over there by the Maverick, all the way up past Galena High School. That's a lot more urban. And then you get up a little bit farther and, you know, it's more residential, and then you get up a little farther and it's more rural. So there's different aspects to each of these segments. There's gonna be some pedestrian improvements, multi-use paths, things like that will go parallel with the roadway. And we think that one of the things that will come out of this is one of the worst roads we've got in the region for speeding. And we're hoping that by making some of the changes here, it'll reduce those, the speeding and the crash that we have. There's a lot of fatal crashes on this roadway too, so. Next. So this is what I added, because I've been getting questions the last couple times I've done this. You guys have all these projects, you have all these buses, where do you get the money from and how are you spending it? So if you look at our revenues for this fiscal year, we have $220 million that we have. Half of it comes from our fuel taxes. So every time you guys go fill up gas, you've got, it's split between local, state, and federal taxes. So local taxes, you know, we get a big chunk of that and makes up for half of our revenue. And that goes toward the road projects. The next one you see is the sales tax, and that goes towards our transit operations. We also get 20% of it from federal funding. So there's formula funding that we'll get. It's a set amount that we'll get. We can also apply for federal discretionary grants. We've been pretty successful on some of our projects getting grants in that way too. And then we also get some funding from NDOT and then some other ones. And expenditures, you might see we're spending more than we have revenue this year. That's not because we're going into debt. It's actually because we planned ahead. We set aside funding in previous years, knowing that we've got some pretty big expensive projects that we're doing this year. One of them will be the Mill Street project that will start later this year. So you can see with transit, about a third of our funding goes towards transit. New roadway projects is almost 30%. And then we got the preservation of multimodal projects. So the pavement preservation program that I was talking about, and then making improvements for walkability, bikeability. And we also, we have some debt that we are paying off, and then our metropolitan planning organization operating, that's 1.6%. And that wraps up my presentation. If you go to the next slide, as I mentioned, we want as much community involvement as we can with our RTP process. If you guys have your phones handy, feel free to scan that QR code, or you can enter that website right there. There's a quick survey. It's about 6 questions. It's multiple choice. Only takes a few minutes. So if you guys have time, we appreciate it. And all of everything.
That's a good presentation. Thank you so much. So informative. Okay, questions. All right, we'll start with Donna.
Donna Keats. I'm just a little confused about separation of duties. Because it wasn't all that long ago that, there were people here talking about this line, from.
Yeah.
No, I can't tell, because
South Virginia one.
yeah, the South Virginia one that goes down to Summit Mall and talking about, we're thinking about going over to Tamale Ranch and running
This
a
one.
little bus for them, and
Are you talking about
was that
Flex Ride?
you?
Are you talking about Flex Ride?
No, I'm actually talking about the bus line. Because I remember
Okay.
talking to him about, well, I tried to take a bus and it's really kind of a pain in the butt to go
Yeah.
from, I live in town and I want to go to Summit. It's kind of trouble, you know, when they change the routes on, so I'm a little confused about who actually does what. I understand your picture planning that you're discussing and funding everything right now. And I know some of it's NDOT, some of it's you guys, but you say you build and then municipalities run the things. So I'm a little confused. If you
We
just
operate the
straighten out
buses.
this, you do the
The
bus.
buses are RTC.
Okay,
And right now, there's only enough demand in South Reno to have Route 56. And it doesn't go all the way down Virginia Street. It kind of wraps around and then goes back up. And that's what that study would do, is it would look into the feasibility of whether or not in the future there'll be enough demand to extend that bus rapid transit line down to the Summit Mall.
I guess I'm kind of like, when they came before to talk to us about this, was that just a standalone because their decision's coming up, or?
Tyler Shaw, Community Liaison for the record. I think some of the confusion, we did have some representatives from RTC at our last Ward 2 NAB meeting specifically to talk only about the South Virginia TOD study. My understanding, and of course you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this presentation is about all the projects in Ward 2 and a general overview of what the RTC does, which is why we have Paul here, our Government Affairs Manager for RTC. Last time, I believe it was project representatives and I think an engineer who
Yes.
spoke specifically about this project, the South Virginia TOD study.
You're studying the details of this line, and you're telling us about.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a
So
little
the TOD
confused
study
about-
is, it's looking at the land use
Right,
and whether it would be feasible to extend that bus line down.
thank you.
Audrey?
Audrey Keller, thank you. This is a great, very interesting presentation. I'm looking at your pie chart with the revenues fiscal year budget 2024. I don't see how electric cars are contributing to the budget. And how are you, that's question one, how are you addressing that? And I know that that's a very big deal because they roll on the roads that we're paying for, but they're not contributing apparently to your budget. That's an issue, I'm sure, for you. But I'd like to know what your thinking is for the next to 2050. And then separately, we're becoming a fulfillment center and a trucking hub for everybody cutting through 80, and that's good for business. But how is that additional trucking, wearing our roads with these heavy trucks, impacting your plans?
I'll talk about the EV stuff. I'll let him handle freight stuff.
Yeah.
He knows a lot more about traffic on roads than I do. So we've been having a lot of conversations about how do we collect some kind of a tax from people that are driving EVs, because that's money that we're not collecting right now.
Right.
And I think last check, there were something like 30,000 EVs on Nevada's roads. So it's complicated. The legislature did a study a couple of years ago, and there's all kinds of different nuances. There's mileage-based user fees that could be implemented. There's flat fees that could be implemented. There's talks about maybe if there's a way that NV Energy could collect charging taxes on it. I don't know if they've got the infrastructure that you could install specifically for trucking vehicles. They're talking about putting a tax on just charging stations, but then that wouldn't allow, that wouldn't collect from people that are charging at their homes. There's also a lot of questions of who would collect these fees. Would it be the DMV? They would have to get the infrastructure in place. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through. We're not sure if this will make it into the legislature this year as a bill. We're kind of hoping to, because there's two sides of the coin. You've got some people who are like, well, if you charge fees or taxes on these EVs, it's going to disincentivize people from buying them. But then you got other people that are like, yeah, but they're using the roads just as much as we are, and we're paying and they're not. So it's complicated. There's privacy concerns if you're doing a mileage-based system. So there's a lot of things that we've been talking about. We actually have one of our colleagues is going to a conference tomorrow for a mileage-based user fee conference. So he's open to learn more about that. It's tricky because it's political too. So anytime you got politics involved, that's also an issue. Do you wanna?
I don't know, for the part, excuse me, so this kind of relates back to, so my name is Jeff Lobrecht, I'm the engineering manager at RTC. This does relate back to the slide on the freight study. So in the RTP, what we look at is that long-term plan of how transportation is operating with our, we look at I-80, 395, 580, the regional roads. We look at how all these things interconnect and how they operate. And so what this freight plan does, it's kind of a good time to do it. We do it every so often. It's just looking at then how NDOT does a freight plan as well for the whole state. They look at all of the state infrastructure, and we look at them in the Truckee Meadows in our kind of sphere of influence. And so what this map kind of nicely shows is kind of where that utilization is occurring and how, this is from a recent study of this, but how they're moving through our community so that we can get to kind of address what your part of your question is of how we're handling it, how we're adapting to it. And there's lots of layers. I mean, just the pavement alone is one component of it, but truck parking is another component of it. There's just layers of like where they're fueling, where they're going, how they're land use and all that kind of stuff. So this plan floats into the RTP, which kind of gives us guidance of how to answer that question. So I don't know, like fully answer your question, but we are looking at it and we do have kind of plans and processes to address it.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you very much. But I do have a question. You're with this upcoming plan. It looks like you're prioritizing building additional capacity for cars, which is only going to, if you build it, it will come. So you're encouraging more drivers to have to drive to places and building larger roads. Why don't you take and with this plan, shift your focus to public transportation and because it is such a pain in the ass to take the bus. If it was easy to take a bus, if I wanted to go from A to B and it was too far to ride my bike, I want to have a mass transit system here, and the money you're spending in building roads and widening roads and putting in triple lefts, that's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Put it in mass transit and who wants to have a city full of cars? I don't. I want to have a city that is walkable and bikeable, and you can jump on a piece of transportation and you're down and you can get off. Quit focusing on building for cars, build for people and walkability and bikeability and mass transit. That's where we need to put our infrastructure dollars.
And the RTP looks at all of those things that you just.
But how fast are we gonna move there? Are these old jobs? Huh?
The RTP is about a 25-year plan. We also have a short-term plan. It's the RTIP, which is the Regional Transportation Implementation Plan. We can't build any roads until it's in that short-term plan. So it moves from the RTP to the RTIP, and that's when we can start building these things. And it depends on what area of town you're in. We're trying to build ridership for transit. We had a TOPS program that looked at our entire network and tries to find out what's the most efficient way to use the bus system. But then we've got areas like North Valleys that are growing like crazy, Pyramid, Spanish Springs, where you have to add capacity for that. So that's also in the RTP plan. And almost every project that we're doing right now, we're putting in bikeability and walkability too. So there's all the things you mentioned, we are doing that.
I would add in too, just briefly. So in the RTP, I think your comment is spot on, and it's exactly what we need when we're doing an update to this thing. So I would truly encourage comment into the RTP. And what the RTP, the front half of it does is it really sets the vision for that future transportation growth and need. And so we look at all kinds of different areas of pedestrian, bikes, transit, equity. There's like 8 or 9 things that we're kind of like evaluating, looking at of how we fold these important things into a process in which we can prioritize and advance projects. For mass transit, if you looked at that chart, you would have saw that the revenue that we get from passenger fees is like 1/10 of what we end up spending on transit. So it's highly subsidized. And that's not wrong. I'm not trying to suggest that at all, but it is a reality in which we live and how we are able to expand transit and put it in places that it does serve the purpose, serve the public in the best possible way possible, because our funds are limited, right? So we're constantly in this balance of trying to evaluate, find what's right, and then execute the priority of our community. That's the whole purpose of the RTP. So best thing to do is comment into it, corral your colleagues, friends, family, whatever, comment into it so that we can execute the community's vision of whatever that is.
And a couple of projects that we're gonna get going just in a couple of years. They're in different wards, so they're not on this slideshow, but we've got the downtown Reno micromobility project. And that's got 4 routes where we're gonna really improve the infrastructure for bikes, especially going north and south between Midtown, Old Southwest to get up to the university area. And then we also have the 6th Street project where we're actually gonna reduce lanes. We're gonna take it from 4 lanes down to 2 and have a center turn lane, parking on the sides. You're gonna have a barrier, like a buffer, and then the bike lanes and then sidewalks. So we are doing things to try to remove traffic in certain areas, make it safer for bikes and pedestrians.
Okay.
Do you have another
One
question?
follow-up question. You talked about your alternate fuels. How are those generated? I mean, is it like, are they burning fossil fuels, any of these?
For
Like, how is the hydrogen
Hydrogen?
generated?
So hydrogen, there's 2 different ways they do it. You might have heard about green hydrogen and blue hydrogen. So the blue hydrogen, they make it out of natural gas. And the green hydrogen is made from water. So that's the, I think it's the more expensive way to do it, but it's the true clean way to do it. We get our hydrogen from Northern California, and I don't know how they manufacture the hydrogen. But on our end, you know, there could be the possibility that they're burning natural gas on the front end. On the back end, the only emissions is water vapor.
And then I think we do also have diesel hybrid electric buses, which maybe is part of your other question. I think those are biodiesel buses.
Yes.
And even those like vans, the alternate, you know, like the flex picker-upper things, are those like, what is that?
Those are natural gas.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Anna?
I'm Donna Keats. I have a kind of a generic big picture question in that, and we touched on this before, but in integrating your plans and bus routes and how this is going to play out, if you have a liaison with the city planners who just essentially moved all the parking everywhere inside the city, so they really need more bus routes. I need more bus routes, that's where I live. And that's why I can't get around, really. I mean, I can stand on Plymouth Street and take the bus, and I can go north and I can change buses. It took me an hour and a half to get someplace that's, 5 miles away or something. So, because the knowledge of where the parking changes have happened, where the amount of parking has been drastically reduced in this last Title 18 code revision. I mean, it's kind of mappable. And I just wondered if, I mean, I'm sure you are, but if you're interfacing with that at all, because that's where, the city intends to do more redevelopment, get more people there, blah, blah, blah. To your point, you gotta build for the darn cars, because, well, we drive cars, and that's the way the city is spread out. And with all the parking reduction, the city has been intending to, well, if we just keep crimping back the parking, and we allow no parking for any development, people will stop driving cars. Well, that doesn't actually happen. It just chucks out neighborhoods with parked cars on the street and raises safety concerns for disabled and children and everybody who tries to walk on the sidewalk, only you can't because there's a 10-foot long pickup parked across it. And so just wondering how that works, because when I'm thinking of, you talked about downtown and micromobility, and I participated in those things too, but I'm looking at, well, okay, I ride my bike, I live near Virginia Lake, ride my bike downtown, go to festivals on the river, whatever. When I used to try to take the bus, I got stopped up. Just like, it'd be so much easier to not even have to worry about my bike, and I'm not that far, but it still would just stop me up between the traffic. And it seems to me that since that's the city's plan, and it's almost as if they think it's gonna happen by magic, they just keep reducing parking and trying to pack people in somewhere. And so we need your planning to account for that, to actually help people get out of the nest and head south and go north and trying to get people from the North Valleys actually into town without having to do the 395 terror truck travel every day.
Yeah.
And I don't know how does that work from a planning perspective? I'm sure you're aware of all of that, but do you have like a liaison? I mean, other than you have people that come to your board meetings and council, that everybody has their own point of view,
I would say, yes, we have layers of liaison. So Tara Schmaltz is one of the city employees, and she's here as RTC's kind of engineering liaison. And so we have RTC planning, they have liaisons, we deal with Angela Goose quite often. So we are always constantly kind of in interaction and coordination, keeping them apprised of what we're doing. They keep us apprised of kind of what they're doing so that we can, as best as possible, coordinate. We are separate agencies. RTC serves, it serves Sparks, it serves Washington County, so we're kind of trying to serve everybody, but Reno's definitely the biggest. And so we're always looking at how can we best achieve the city of Reno's vision, right? How does the city of Reno's vision interact and interplay with the city of Sparks' vision? So we're always.
As we get more bus service in, in those areas where they're visibly having their vision.
How do you get more bus service?
Yeah.
We
Where the
gotta,
vision is.
yeah, we gotta hear comment about it. We need to constantly hear, hey, it'd be so great to have a bus route here. And public comment goes so far. I mean, we can analyze it to the nth degree. We can come up with all these alternatives. Every alternative needs to be able to be funded. It's gonna have to have a trade-off, or it's gonna have to have additional funding. So it's all.
So what happens like on the micromobility, because I did your surveys, I thought all of them, when they come across, it's like civic duty or something, so I go ahead and do them. And all the stuff about the micromobility and I got whammed with like, okay, great, I can go to here, then I have to stop, and I go to here, then I have to stop, and then I need a car. Because of course it is in the general downtown area, limited by certain parameters and all the permutations that it's gone through over time. But it's still like, okay, but I'm not a student, I don't really want to go to the university, but I do want to be able to ride my bike, and I don't go on the street. A lot of people seem to get killed on there, and I'm not happy riding my bike on those streets, anymore. And so I've answered the surveys, but is there some better way for me to let you know what
I mean, we're more than happy to connect you with the
old
transit
people
group.
in my neighborhood really need?
Yeah, I mean, like, let's start talking, I guess, like, Jim Gees, our director of public transit, and he's more than happy to talk to anybody who wants to give him ideas, and they'll have very clear and concrete answers of why they're doing what they're doing. And they should, so.
And we do have, our board meetings are every third Friday of the month
Oh,
at 10 a.m. So, and there's public comment there, so.
do people come? Do we get many people from the public?
And all of our directors there, most of our staff is there, so if you want to talk to somebody one-on-one, they're usually available.
Member Tetzel. So I get, I'm hearing this about the point where you need a car, you wanted to take the bus, but there's a point where you need a car. To me, if you make those investments in filling in those gaps and getting that ridership, get those people that would do mass transit if it worked, you take all those cars off of the street, and you guys are a transportation agency. And why don't you just like set your mind that way first? And then if public complains, that you're doing it wrong, then, take those public comments into account. But better mass transit is, it takes ridership off the roads. So reduce those areas where you need a car, then you don't have to spend all this money widening roads, and then these are roads you have to maintain. It's very expensive to maintain a road too. And you have these maintenance projects. If you invested, in mass transit and made those rides doable, you're saving all kinds of money. It's just.
Cart before the horse kind of problem, Like right now, we have cars and traffic issues and.
It's because you have to take the car.
But there are all those people who are busily having wrecks as they try to exit the freeway.
Because there's so many cars.
Understood. Those are the people who need help right now today, and that's how you get knowledge.
Well, I mean, the way I see it, it's if you take away the demand where people have to get on those roads, vehicle volumes go down, crashes go down, lives are saved, and you're not polluting, you're not filling up Reno with cars. It's like, Amsterdam or whatever, or Berlin. There are cities where mass transit works, and I'm just saying, I wish you guys would change your mindset and invest in those, make those investments so that people don't get to the point where, and then I need a car.
And that goes back to that TOD study that we were talking about in South Reno. That's what we would like to see.
Well, you're only spending 33% of your money on mass transit, and there must be a reason why. Maybe it's politically difficult. I don't know, but it just seems if you reduce the demand to have to get in my car, I have to, because this route does not work for me. Now you have to build another left turn lane and you have to chew up the desert because you've made somebody have to do a car. I mean, you guys are a transportation organization, just brains on this.
Member Hinman, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, so just going back into costs, I was looking at your senior ride taxi program, and you said that you offer $60 monthly subsidies, which can run out. I'm interested, like how much does one ride cost?
Well, I know I took an Uber home during a snowstorm and it was $70. So it depends on where you're going and which company you're taking and how short the drive is. You know, if it's a short distance, you know, you might get multiple rides out of it. I know my parents, they're both in their 70s and they signed up for it because they can get to the airport. You know, if they want to take a trip, they can go to the airport, not have to pay for parking when they get there. So. But, you know, it'll help them out, you know, if they've got like a doctor's appointment and it's a one-time thing or something, you know, that'll take care of that. Grocery stores, you know, things like that.
Right, because I know that there are a lot of seniors who can't necessarily drive, or, you know, like as you get older, driving becomes more difficult to where you can't necessarily do it anymore, but you still got to get places. So I was just curious on that. And when it comes to the rides, I think you mentioned that it's kind of similar to Uber and Lyft, and I know that you can book ahead with some of those companies. You're able to do that with this as well, right?
With, are you talking about FlexRide?
Yes.
FlexRide it's an on-demand thing. So I don't know if you can schedule it ahead of time. I think you actually have to go on the app or call customer service and then they'll send it to you.
Okay. And is there a limit on the distance you can travel, or does it have to be like in the general area of operating? So like the ones that you had mentioned, South Meadow, like if somebody's in the South Meadows area, can they only travel like that distance, or could they also travel to, you know, North Valleys if they had to?
No, if they wanted to go to North Valleys, they would have to, like if you're in South Meadows, you could take a FlexRide to the fixed route system, which is bus 56. And then you could make your way up on the fixed route if you want to get to North Valleys. And also, so it costs $2 per ride, $3 per round trip. And that also counts for the fixed route. So if you get a FlexRide, that's good for the fixed route too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys coming out. It was a great presentation, super informational. We really appreciate your time and great job. And, you know, we really look forward to hearing from you again, maybe later at the end of this year, maybe the completion of some of the projects. So
We might have a few ribbon cutting.
exactly. Well, fantastic. Thanks again for your time. We appreciate it.
Before you guys leave,
Great job.
is there anyone in the room who'd like to give public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to give public comment on this item? If you'd like to give public comment by Zoom, please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Madam Chair, I don't see any public comment on this item.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great job.
Yeah, it was really good.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item C, board, commission, and committee member report and announcements.
Are there any board members who would like to make an announcement or report?
Report generically? Does I need to generically? Do I have to be on a board or something?
I think these are for board updates. If you'd like to make a general comment, you can speak up under public comment. Is it about something that's on the agenda or?
It's our recent actions at council.
Okay, so we'll do that under public comment. Is there anyone who has an update based on a board that they participate or watch or sit in on?
I missed the last charter committee because I'm on sabbatical. Apologies. I will bring another report next month.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, moving on to item D, future agenda items. Any board members have any future agenda items they'd like to bring before the Neighborhood Advisory Board? Audrey?
Last meeting I asked about the Parks Department for Ward 2 coming to tell us what their plans were and their investments planning was for Ward 2. So I'm wondering when that might show up. And separately, I'd like to hear from the Humane Society. And my future, I don't know if it's a future agenda item, but I think it's not best practice to get such a delay of the board's approval of the minutes, like you just approved of February minutes. And it's May, and I'm wondering why that process is. And because, I don't know, I couldn't remember who said what from February to May. And so we're asked to approve such minutes. Is there an internal issue with process?
So minutes by Nevada open meeting law, minutes are required to be approved within 45 days as long as the commission meets. So for example, the Ward 2 NAB didn't end up meeting in March, I believe due to a lack of quorum. And then the minutes were sent, I think it was the day after I sent the agenda for the April meeting. So I wasn't able to update it for the April meeting, which is why it's on the May meeting. In general, our minute taker, who I know is on there and watching, is prompt and sends them within the required period for her contract. You're always welcome to review the recordings of the meetings, which are available on YouTube. If you're not sure about the minutes and you want to go back and check something and make sure that it's an accurate representation, it's posted on the City of Reno's YouTube page. And then for the Nevada Humane Society, did you have a particular topic you wanted to discuss with them, or just like a general presentation on their operations?
I'd like to just have a general presentation on their operations and their outlook for services providing the community.
Sure. I can definitely request them to come to the NAB. Just as a reminder for everyone, we don't have the power to force anyone, but normally these organizations are pretty receptive to coming to these because they like to spread the word about what they do. So I'll definitely reach out. And it's the same with the Parks Department. I'm working with them to come to this NAB and see if they're interested in coming to the other NABs to give like a citywide update, kind of similar to what RTC is doing, but for parks. So keep an eye out for that.
But my interest, just to be clear,
Mhm.
is I really want to hear about Ward 2's parks. I mean, they could give an executive overview,
Mhm.
but I want to know, how many parks are in Ward 2?
Mhm.
What is their financial investment, reinvestment in the equipment? Like our park at Wheatland Park is the park playground is falling apart.
Mhm.
When is it scheduled and what's the budget? Like some specifics.
Yeah, I'll definitely ask them for those. We might also connect offline and I can see if I can just connect with the director and get some of the questions answered for the specifics, and then see if they can come and do like a Ward 2 presentation and talk about kind of the resources that we have here.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Are there any other future agenda items from the board members? Did you, Dave, Member Titzel?
I guess, process, like, what's our power to compel somebody to come here and,
Yeah, well, it's in the name, it's a neighborhood advisory board. It's not a working board, so the NAB doesn't have any power to recommend or deny anything, take action on any items other than approval of the minutes and adjournment. The NAB can't compel anyone to come. I mean, even development projects, the way it's written in the resolution, they may come to the NAB. We have them come to the NAB generally as a process of due course for public comment, making sure the neighbors know what's going on. But their participation isn't actually required. So the NAB they don't have subpoena power. They can't force anyone to come or whatever. But normally when we ask organizations like RTC or NDOT, they're usually very happy to come. They also want to connect with the community and they want to talk to people and they want to get their message out. So like what Audrey did, you're totally welcome to say, hey, I'd love to hear from whoever. I'd love to hear from X, and I can ask. And most of the time they're pretty excited, but if they don't want to come, I can't make them, unfortunately.
I guess I would like to request that the RTC come and give us a presentation on who the bus route is designed, who's it built for? I mean, are they building for the bus routes for only low income people that absolutely don't have a car, so they have no other choice but to ride this, crappy bus? Or are they, is their customer a car, owner?
Yeah, I can definitely request that they come back. Again, it might be a while, but what I can also do in the meantime is connect you with Jim Gee, which is the Director of Transit Operations at the RTC that Paul was mentioning, and I know I'll connect you also, Donna, so I'll probably just send it out to the whole board. His contact information, I've worked with him multiple times on constituent concerns. He's a great guy, and he'd love to talk to both of you about their transit operations at the RTC.
Yeah, and if it's inappropriate for the whole board, I guess I'd like to sit down with him by myself, or anybody that wants to listen. That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah, I'm happy to make the connection.
Okay, and if I'm being inappropriate or something,
No.
please let me know.
You're all right. It's the NABs are much more informal than most open meeting law boards. So discussions like these are encouraged, and it's great that you all are so interested in learning about the city and what we do, and we're pretty excited to show everyone. So
What,
go ahead.
what about the swimming pool? Could we have someone talk about that?
Yeah.
Because that's gonna be opening up fairly soon, isn't it?
I think it's scheduled to open in August, but I think that would be definitely a very good thing to have, especially with the park update.
Didn't we have one in March,
I
February?
In February.
It was recent.
think there was something about the pool
Yeah,
pretty recently.
because they had the big discussion about the locker room and the lobby
Mhm.
issues.
Oh.
Yeah, it was,
We got the plans though.
Yeah, we
Went
got
through
the-
them and looked
Yeah.
at,
Oh, maybe that was before I was appointed or
It
something.
was
I don't,
either January or February.
yeah, it was not long ago.
yeah, I wasn't on the board then.
I'll look back and see what we had, and if there's materials like a presentation or something, I'll forward it, and then I'll make sure to request when Parks comes, they talk about that facility also.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other board member requests for future agenda items? Okay,
All right, public comment? Go ahead,
go
Donna.
ahead.
I just wanted to, I don't know if you guys. Sorry about that. If you follow what happens at council, town council, or, within specific items, but, I've been participating in the whole housing initiatives that the city's been working on for years, really. And I don't know if, I don't really know where you guys live or anybody's interested or what, but they just had, it was kind of like in November, there was yet another housing workshop that was follow on from a year and a half prior, blah, blah, about trying to increase housing in the range that real people can afford. Like the catchphrase is workforce level housing, which means 80 to 120% average median income. If you guys aren't interested in this, I don't have to tell you about it. I just thought I would offer an update if you are. Are you?
I'm very interested in the housing.
Okay, I don't want to just keep talking, because I've heard it. So,
No, if you don't mind me asking, is this a really long?
So anyway, I was going to encourage you to pay attention because there are a lot of different initiatives that have happened. At one point, planning commission got involved and they reviewed some things and did some things. And then in March, council took it off their agenda because it got pretty political. And with the election coming up, et cetera, it just would be something I think that people should pay attention to, at least from my perspective, because it has to do with what level of housing things are being permitted for. And like in terms of the affordable housing stuff, recently, it was just a couple of weeks ago, they did actually get rid of some of the things that were building to $120,000 income people, being able to give them density bonuses and do things that are odd for that high level, and get it back down to 30% AMI people, incentivizing that kind of building. So it's kind of convoluted and complicated, and it's been ongoing for a couple of years. And with the upcoming election, there was a lot of interesting things that happened, what people said and what they said the last time and all of that. But I'd encourage you to check it out because it's a pretty big deal. And I don't know development in our areas is affected by this, but certainly the Newton area. And I am increasingly distressed that actually people that I know can't afford to rent any place because, but yet they're giving density bonuses and such to what's classified as luxury apartment housing. I think that's wrong. And I encourage anybody who cares that.
Is there somebody that can give us an update on that in this?
Naomi can. She's here next month.
Can we request that?
If, Donna, I think I'll take that as a request for a future agenda item and see if we can request some staff to come give an update or see if there's someone who can be available to answer some questions about the housing initiatives from the board members.
The ordinance that they're about to propose goes to council, like, I don't know, next 3 weeks or something, and it, a lot of. Yeah, I'm not sure, I just am not sure if that informs the agenda, I haven't seen it yet. But the ordinance has changed quite a lot since the first 4 or 5 times it got proposed. And maybe all of you won't like it, but it's going, I don't know the date, but.
I don't know the date
it's in
either, but
general, they have to rewrite it.
I'll research the ordinance and if it's coming before the next Ward 2 NAB, I'll send the information to all of you. Blind copied, just as a reminder to the NAB members, serial communication is not allowed under Nevada open meeting law. So if you are trying to communicate with the NAB members outside of a NAB meeting, the easiest way to do that is to forward the information to me and I can distribute it to the board members via BCC email. If you're forwarding information or CCing, the whole NAB, it's technically a walking quorum and a violation of open meeting law. So
I'd encourage all of you to just sign up to get the agendas for the council meeting. And you'll know when it comes up. Quick scan, see the agenda, then you can always access the packet of information that comes along with. Because there are a lot of big things have been happening that I think are well publicized tonight. So just encourage you to tell your friends, just sign up, get it in your email. If you don't already.
thank you for your comments. Is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to give public comment on today's meeting? If you'd like to give public comment by Zoom, please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Madam Chair, we don't have anyone who'd like to give closing public comment on today's agenda.
Thank you. Our next item is adjournment. Would somebody like to make a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting today?
I move to adjourn the meeting today.
Stand out, I second.
I think all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for your attendance today and great comments and questions. And we'll see everybody next month on June 18th.